Alright, this is going to be a Dosa PvP guide. To preface this video, changes are coming with Global Lab probably for the next couple of weeks, so things in this guide may change. I'll do an updated guide once they've stopped fixing or changing the Dosa. Let's begin. Movement's pretty freestyle in this class. You've got a lot of SAs. It's going to come down to which order you want to use things in, so I'm going to show you the movement options and then I'll show you roughly how I use the movement, but this is not set in stone. You can come up with your own ways to move depending on where you want to land. Okay, let's start with our shift movement. So we've got Stratus shift here, which is the direction plus shift, pretty standard, but it also flows into Cloud drift, which is RMB plus A or RMB plus D, and it does also flow from the shift if we are using a sideways direction. So to show you what I mean is, this is Stratus shift and this is the flow Cloud drift. If I hold it down, it'll just keep flowing. But sometimes I don't want to use the shift, I want to alternate them. So I can press R and B and A or D just to use the second portion, just to use Cloud drift. And that allows you to do things like this, where you can keep cancelling into them and continuously move. Alright, so that's the shift movement, pretty standard stuff outside of the flow. Next we'll go over Deep Haze. So Deep Haze is forward F. Now forward F does end in an unprotected kick, which is a knockback, but we can cancel that into other things. I'll go over the cancel options after the movement. Shift space, this is Cloud step. Pretty straightforward, similar to Wusa, but nowhere near as good. Then we have Cloud shield. Now this is back plus F or S plus F. The first part, as you can see, is unprotected, then it goes into iframe and ends in an SA. After the G-Lab patch next week, that's going to become a protected all the way through. They are getting rid of that unprotected portion. Now what you could do with this is, it'll go backwards one step and then forward one step, right? If I want to move this direction, you can basically turn your camera and then just hold W the entire time. So I'd go like this, and then hold W to cover the distance in the direction I want to go. Alternatively, to spin the camera the other way if you're trying to get out of danger, right? So you can always go like this, and get out. So they're your main movement options. Now I'll show you the cancels. The two main cancels are going to be RMB and RMB, and then you can obviously cancel into other things like SPACEBAR, so we'll just go over those three. Those three are the most common ones. So if we cancel Deep Haze, which is forward F, into RMB, it does a little iframe into unprotected slash. That iframe into the unprotected slash is also a knockback. Then we have RMB cancel. So it goes iframe into SA, the SA is a knockdown. And then we have spacebar cancel. Similar to the Hashashin Sin Splitter, but without the CC on it. It's just a protected movement skill. It can go through enemies, there's no unit collision on it. So essentially you've got RMB, RMB and spacebar, which will cancel out of all of your movement options. So I can go shift space into RMB, sideways into RMB, sideways into spacebar. You can also cancel out of C, so this is what C looks like. It'll put this little spirit dude behind the enemy and it'll knock him back. I'll show you on the dummy later, but you can cancel into it with RMB. And you can also cancel it with RMB. So you're basically trying to stay protected as long as you can during your movement phase. You also want to be able to get behind the enemy or reposition in a protected way. There are going to be some gaps, so your RMB cancel, which they have just changed as well. Even when that's on cooldown, you can continuously use it. It just doesn't have the iframe into CC on it. But you can use that for some quicker movement if you don't need to be protected. But essentially I'm just watching these. So I want to know that I've got shift up, I've got my right click direction up, I've got back F up, I've got shift space up. My RMB is going to be both for movement and CC and it's protected. Your spacebar, which is the Sin Splitter knockoff from Hash. And then you've also got your forward F into a cancel, so your Deep Haze. So if you want to do all these together, something along these lines. Now there are gaps like that, which will be gone as of next patch. But as you can see, there's pretty strong for the protection side of things. There are going to be some gaps that you can get caught out of. This one here is the biggest pain in the ass at the moment. How it does that little leap with no protections at the start, that's getting changed. So after the G-Lab update comes out next week, that will have protection the whole way through. It makes life a lot easier. As for all the cancels, you just want to make sure you're not getting caught out with your left click cancel. The other ones are protected, like so. So that's fine. But if you keep using left click, you will get caught at the end of that. Alright, let's move on to attacks and combos. Now, realistically, there's no set in stone combo here. There's a bunch of filler damage you can use. I'm just going to chuck up some fillers on the screen and your main CCs, but essentially your knockdown is going to be Cloudveil, which is the RMB Cancel. You've got Fogbloom, which is forward F. You've got your Shift RMB, which is the big protected knockdown. You've got your Shift E, which you can cancel into. Big AoE knockdown. Well, AoE in front of you, big cone knockdown. Then you've also got a bunch of down smashes. So your Shift F will be your down smash. Your Shift Q, those are going to be the main ones that you're going to use. Big damage, down smashes. And pretty much all your shift attacks are down attacks as well. So your Shift RMB is also a down attack. Your Shift F is a down attack. Shift Q is a down attack. And your Shift LMB is a down attack. The only one that's not a down attack is Shift E. Alright, so for a combo structure, the way I look at this class is, yeah, there are a couple of floats and things. You can do this, you know, hold your E chain down for a float. But I'm going for the knockdowns. So your knockdowns are going to be the RMB Cancel, the forward F, the Shift RMB, and the Shift E. Let's assume that we get the knockdown with Shift E for now. Right. The easiest combo is going to be going into Shift Q, second knockdown, and then using your bigger attacks. Right. And you should be able to disengage before they stand up. That's going to be a pretty standard combo no matter what you get down. There is some min-maxing we can do. For instance, if we do happen to get it with a Shift E, you can go C into the RMB Cancel before you do your second CC. So go knockdown, C, LMB, Shift RMB for the second knockdown, and then you do your end knock. Alright, so for the combos, we're looking at basically just having a knockdown into Shift Q for our highest nuke, into a second CC, and then your finisher. The problem is, depending on what kind of knockdown you get, or what ability you use to get the knockdown, they don't all cancel into Shift Q nicely. So for instance, if I go forward RMB into Shift Q, it's not so bad. However, if I was to knock them down with Shift RMB first, and try and go into Shift Q, it takes a little bit longer, which I'll show you here in a sec. Go Shift RMB. See how there's more of a wind up there? That extra wind up means we can't get as many attacks in before our second CC. So for a good basic combo structure, for anyone picking up the Dosa, the best thing to do is pick any of your CCs, or any of your KDs rather. And once you've picked one of these KDs, you're going to go KD into Shift Q, into second KD, and then into whatever other shift abilities are up. So Shift LMB, cancel that into Shift F for instance. So for a standard combo, pretty basic, but we'll use this. And then you can disengage before they stand up as well. As far as the damage goes, damage is pretty high. Your highest damaging attacks are going to be your shift attacks for the most part. You do have the option to do cancels into a catch. So a solid catch is also dash into right click and then go straight into that. So you can do your combo. You could also do it using your forward RMB. So one that I like to do for the most part is I'll side cancel my LMB past the enemy and then turn into forward RMB. So it'll be something like this. Shit view there. Do it over here. So something along these lines. That will be with RMB and then with LMB. LMB cancel. So you can get behind the enemy. You can also pretty simply go like this, turn, to get behind frontal guards. Unfortunately, for filler damage, we are locked into certain things. So we're locked into, for instance, the F doing this whole chain to get all this damage out. The E is a float, so we don't want that capping our CC in the middle of our combo. The RMB is just not that worth it. It takes a while before you get to the abilities that actually do the damage. Same with the LMB. I mean, the LMB combo comes out of the RMB combo anyway, but yep, so this is all filler damage. The choice of filler that I would be using is your C into left click. That allows you to at least make up the space, because you will notice that occasionally you're going to do a cancel, right? You're going to go Shift E and maybe W to get behind them, and you end up pretty far away from them sometimes. Sometimes you end up at about this distance from the enemies. Max range, right? The quickest way to get in is going to be C into LMB, and that LMB cancel lets you go straight into your second CC. So as an example, we'll go Shift E from here, pretty max distance, C, LMB, into the second CC. Right? For the case of the combo though, we'll use the Shift Q beforehand. So if you do happen to get Shift E knockdown, this would be the optimal combo for you to be using. And then you disengage, so you don't get grabbed when they stand up. That would be for a Shift E knockdown. Now you can play around with it, figure out timings, figure out, you know, if you use different attack speed crystals, Vels, Splendids, whatever you want to do, what you can and can't fit in there. You've been given the priority list. I'll also link the spreadsheet of damage abilities that Biceptimus kindly put in his video for the PvE guide. But essentially what we're going to be doing is the basic combo, and then depending on which KD you use and what cancels well out of them, that's how you can determine what filler damage you want to place in there. As far as what we lock, we don't really lock anything except evasion. And as far as what we hotbar, we have to hotbar our E buff, Cloud Legion. Now, Dosa in general means that you don't get the same kind of AP buffs from your E buff that other classes get, but it kind of looks like it was meant to be for capped, to be honest. So in capped Node Wars, this is like having an extra deep sea elixir running. Perfect for that. Unfortunately, there's no AP on this, so you do have to rely on the AP from your passive, which we'll go over in a sec as well, just in case anyone doesn't know about it. But that would be this passive here. For skill add-ons, these are the skill add-ons that I'm using. It is not built for any specific combo. The general idea here is you want to have the damn attack speed on. This class is already slow as shit. So with that, I'll usually initiate hoping to get a big AoE knockdown with Shift RMB. It's a safe attempt. That's where I get my attack speed and my human damage. After that, you've got your Shift Q, which is also a safe attempt. It's a heal, it's your highest damage, so I want the crit damage and negative DP on that, so they can nuke as hard as possible. The logic behind the rest is essentially just keeping down attack, crit attack, DP downs up, and then for Cloud Shield, realistically this is a flex slot, do whatever you want here. Alright, so for the passive, we want to get level 4. You want the AP buff. We don't give a shit about the critical hit rate. All of our actual damaging attacks are 100% critical. However, we do want the AP 20. Now you want this at level 4, so it lasts 20 seconds, you don't have to think about it. Easiest way to do this is S block. Just S block. You don't have to hit the parry for it to proc. It'll proc off an S block as well. If you are sitting there going, man, I really want to build it up using, you know, my C, my forward RMB, all these different things to try and get that built, and you're not focusing on actually the fight in front of you, you're just trying to build the passive using abilities, you're probably going to die for it or do suboptimal things. So if you want the passive, just S block one attack and then go about your day trying to do what you wanted to do in the first place. Alright, we don't have a Magnus yet. Unfortunately, we don't have skill add-ons either, so I'm going to have to do an updated guide. Obviously, they're going to make more changes to this damn class. But hopefully the changes keep pointing in the right direction. Currently, it looks like they are. For the BSR, I'll just show you that while we're here, because why not? The BSR is basically just a buffed up version of Shift LMB. So if we show you this here, if you look at the actual damage, it's not ridiculously better or anything. You do get your AP buff, like all BSRs, cast speed, critical hit rate, etc. But look at it kind of like not so much a nuke, but rather a big AoE stun. So it goes through them, and then that explosion there is also a stun, and you can come out with attack speed. can see there, knockdown on hit 1 is PvE only, so the stun is on the last hit. Alright, that's it for the Dosa for today. Hopefully this has at least given you an idea on how to play the class in PvP, what the PvP is like in the class. I do have a montage out if you want to go check out some. Other people have their montages out too. For the most part, it's a fun class. It still needs some work to be, you know, considered top tier or anything like that. Doesn't necessarily need to become a top tier class, but it's fun enough and it's different enough that I think it's worth checking out. Thanks for watching.